Boys, what's good? It's Herm. We're here today to talk about the Miami Heat because they reportedly plan to go star hunting this offseason. They just had a fantastic run to the NBA Finals. They lost in 5, but still a great season for them. The Miami Heat really overachieved. Going from the 8th seed all the way to the NBA Finals, they are the best 8th seed in NBA history. I could tell you that right now with kind of definity that that's just how it is. But the Miami Heat are looking to get better. They know that they can get better. They know that they're probably one piece away, and they want to get that piece this offseason, and they're going to be very aggressive in doing so. So today we're going to talk about why they think it's time to be aggressive now, as well as give trade targets and trade packages for those guys for the Miami Heat, and just what's next for Miami after this great run to the NBA Finals. But before we get into it, think about subscribing. It's free, it's easy. If you don't like the content, you know, as unsubscribe later, that's fine. But without further ado, let's just get into it. Let's not waste any time. So let's start off with the report. So according to Shams as well as Lowe and Windhorst, the Miami Heat are expected to go star hunting this offseason. Although the team made a surprising run to the finals, they're still pretty clearly one piece away, at least I feel like. They need another guy who can lead the offense and help Jimmy and Bam when the others hit slumps, because that's kind of what happened in the finals. What got the Heat to the finals was this crazy kind of everyone was hitting at once, right? Caleb Martin was super hot. Max Strus was super hot. Gabe Vincent was super hot. And then we get to this NBA Finals, and Max Strus can't hit anything. Caleb Martin just isn't the same guy we saw in the Boston series. And although Gabe Vincent was really good in the first couple games of this series, was kind of inconsistent and struggled after the first couple. So to me, they need another guy that can step up when those guys are struggling, especially because Jimmy wasn't super efficient in this series either. I don't think Jimmy was bad, but he wasn't like the playoff Jimmy that we're used to, so they need another guy who can reliably score and give them offensive output. There are a few key stars that will be available this summer, and Miami wants to land one of them. Let's take a look. Why are they being so aggressive now? 3 reasons why the time is right for Miami at this moment. Starting off, they have the chance to make this an all-time era for the Heat. In Jimmy Butler's 4 years in Miami, the Heat have made the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times. 3 out of 4 is crazy. In the NBA Finals twice. They've done it as massive underdogs, reaching the finals as the 5 seed in 2020 and as the 8th seed this postseason. The team has been led by an all-time playoff performer in Jimmy Butler and a fan-favorite defensive anchor in Bam Adebayo. If they add a title to this era's resume, they can not only plant Jimmy as a top 3 Heat ever, which some people might argue he already is, but to me Alonzo Mourning is probably above him, but it's close. And if he wins a title, he's kind of definitively top 3 and has a real argument to be second. But the team as one of the best in franchise history. So if they win a title, they can put not only Jimmy in that high ranks of the franchise, but also the team in general. So this Jimmy Bam hero era can become one of the best Heat groups we've ever seen. Right now they're competing with Hardaway and Mourning, which went to the NBA Finals once. The Wade Shaq era, who went to the finals and won it, as well as going to the conference finals before that. And then the Heatles era, which went to the NBA Finals 4 times and won 2 of them, which was obviously Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh. Right now, I would say that's pretty clearly the best era in Miami history, but Wade and Shaq was pretty good, as well as Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway being great players. But I think you can argue right now this era, with 2 finals appearances, might be better than the Hardaway Mourning group, and that's crazy to see because most people, like during the regular season, barely view Jimmy as a top 10 player, maybe more like top 20 or top 15, but he has done crazy things with this team and has been super successful, and they had the chance to become one of the greatest groups in a very storied franchise's history. Second, they're close. Despite this team being the 8th seed this season, they're really not far away from being able to win it all. Despite it being only a 5-game series, the Heat didn't really play bad. Denver was just elite. They're one of the best best teams of the past few years, and that made it tough. No matter what Miami was going to do, it was going to be difficult. Miami had leads in the first half in seemingly all of their finals losses, and if they could have consistently put 4 quarters together, they could have won it all. They were pretty good down the stretch of the fourth quarters in each of these games as well. A lot of times if they were down, they were making comebacks to get it close, and they were just there. They were very, very close, and if they could have done it through 4 quarters, it felt like they kind of consistently lost the second and third quarters, but if they could do that better, they could win the finals now. They were competitive with the Lakers in 2020, missed the finals by 1 shot in 2022, this one pictured here, this Jimmy Butler 3 over Al Horford that just rimmed out, and were competitive in the finals this season. They're close, they're not far away, and they don't need much because they're right there. And third, they just need more reliable offense. This team finished 25th on offensive rating this season at just 113. They finished 27th in three-point percentage at just 34.4%. In the NBA Finals this year, they shot 34.3% from 3, slightly worse than what they did in the regular season, and they shot just 40.7% from the field in this year's Finals, and they put up only 96 points per game. It just has to be better. The offense has to be better. I think the defense is actually pretty good. It's unique with the zone they play, and even if you're going to run man-to-man, they have enough good defenders on this team that they can be a good defensive team, but they just need more offense. That's the biggest thing with Miami. You need more consistent offense. But now let's take a look at the star targets and trades to get all 5 of them to Miami, starting off with the one I think is the best, Damian Lillard. This is the one that makes the most sense. So the Heat here would get Damian Lillard. The Blazers would get Tyler Hero, Caleb Martin, Nikola Jovic, Victor Oladipo, and 3 first-round picks, including this year's pick. It's going to take a lot to get Dame. He's still one of the best point guards in the league. I'd say he's a top 3 point guard in the league. He is at worst a top 5 point guard in the league, and is one of the best playoff performers of the last decade, has been super consistently dominant in the playoffs offensively, and if he comes to Miami, I think he completes the puzzle. There was a time he was talking about on a podcast too, if the Heat won the finals, he couldn't go there because, it would make him look bad, kind of like the whole KD to the stacked Warriors thing, but they didn't win the finals, so it's not like the Heat were some juggernaut, so if he goes there, he doesn't think it'll make him look as bad, and Dame seemingly kind of wants to go to the Heat. If he was to get traded, I think the Heat would be the favorite destination, and it is right now. Basically all betting places, all sports books have Miami as the favorite to land Dame. If his next team isn't still Portland, Miami is the favorite right now. But the package isn't great, but they've talked about it as well. The Blazers have. It's been leaked that if Damian Lillard was to request a trade to the Eastern Conference, they would work with him to get him to the team that he wanted. And if it's Miami, this is about what it'll look like. They'd get Tyler Hero as a great shooting guard, a 20-point per game scorer, and like a pretty good high upside wing in Caleb Martin, who was phenomenal through the first 3 rounds of this year's NBA playoffs. Looked like a star in the conference finals, outperformed Jaylen Brown. That's just a fact. And a lot of people would argue that Caleb Martin should have been the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. They get Nikola Jovic as well, an interesting young player on the Heat, and Victor Oladipo, who's an expiring contract, as well as 3 picks. The picks is a good amount, the players is a good amount, but does it have that top tier piece that maybe the Blazers are looking for? But it seems like they're willing to talk about it. But it feels like if you add Damian Lillard to this Heat team, they just become elite. Damian Lillard is the perfect piece for this team. He gives them the spacing they need. He gives them the all-around offense they need. He's a good playmaker, and they don't give up too much. Tyler Hero wasn't included in this year's playoff run. Caleb Martin was huge for them, but basically replacing Caleb Martin with Dame is a pretty obvious win upside wise, and at that point maybe you run like Jimmy at the 4, Bam at the 5, and then like Dame, Gabe Vincent, and Duncan Robinson or something like that. But the Heat would still have a good team, and they would have a definitive top 3 with Dame, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And this to me would make the Heat legitimate, real, you expect them to be contenders going into the season, and give them the best chance they could possibly have to win the NBA Finals. He also has a winner's mindset to me, and just kind of fits in well to Heat culture. The second one is Kyrie Irving. It's a guy that they've been linked to as of late, saying that they tried to trade trade for him at the deadline before he was ultimately dealt to Dallas. But they have had interest. But to me, I don't love Kyrie as a star player going to Miami, just because, in my opinion, he doesn't really fit like the normal Heat guys. Does he fit basketball-wise? Absolutely. They need his offense. He's a gifted offensive player, like 27 or 28 points per game this year, somewhere in that range, one of the best handles ever, and they've needed like a lead point guard for a couple years now because Kyle Lowry just didn't work out quite as well as they expected him to. So you get Kyrie here as your all-star point guard, but with all the off-the-court stuff and everything that comes along with Kyrie Irving, he just feels like a player that the Heat don't usually take on. But Jimmy Butler was a guy who a lot of people kind of viewed negatively, couldn't work out with teammates type of stuff before he landed in Miami, so who knows. But the Mavs here in a sign and trade would get Kyle Lowry as a veteran point guard to kind of lead and provide a mentor for the young guys, as well as Caleb Martin, a good defensive wing as well as one that provides upside. They need defense badly after losing Dorian Finney-Smith, and they also get 2 picks. They traded what was basically their only pick to get Kyrie, so to get picks back would be valuable, as well as getting Caleb Martin and a lower end replacement in Kyle Lowry. But Kyrie again would be a great fit. You keep Tyler Hero, so then you could run out Kyrie, Tyler Hero, whether it's Duncan or whoever. I'm not sure who you'd run out at the 3, but Jimmy and Bam, again, it would be an elite team. Maybe you bring Kevin Love back and you run out Jimmy at the 3, K-Love at the 4, and Bam at the 5. And I think the Heat, again, if they made a deal like this, would jump into the next tier and have a much better shot of winning it all. But there could be some issues that come along with Kyrie. So to me, this would be a riskier move, but one that could pay off pretty well. Third, we could talk about Bradley Beal. This is one that has its issues as well because of the contract. The contract for Beal is massive. It is for Lillard too, but I just feel like you're a little more willing to take it on with Dame than you are with Beal. But the Heat here get Bradley Beal. The Wizards get Hero as their shooting guard replacement going forward. Duncan Robinson, Jovic, and 2 picks. So I wanted it to be someone like maybe like Caleb Martin instead of Duncan Robinson, just so it felt like they were getting a little more. But this is the one that was on like Hoops Analysis Network. They do a lot of mock trades, and Duncan Robinson just makes a lot of money, so he's pretty good as a filler in a lot of these type of deals. But in my opinion, it's basically Hero and picks for Bradley Beal, and it's not bad considering that it feels like it's time for him to get out of there, and Beal has to approve anything because he has a no-trade clause, but going to Miami feels like something he would improve. Is a guy who's a very good three-point shooter and just an offensive weapon, has been a 30-point-per-game scorer before in his career, and fills the needs that the Heat have, but to me, the money would be hard to take on because especially last year, it felt like Beal had declined. But let's talk about the 4th guy, one that I really like but isn't being talked about as much, and that's Dejounte Murray. I think Dejounte Murray is a guy who feels like he's perfectly into Heat culture as one that's very good defensively, kind of pesky and getting steals, physical, good playmaker, and a good rebounder for a guard as well. He kind of has a little bit of an attitude problem maybe. He's kind of cocky in the way that he plays, but I don't think that's a problem. I think the Heat have a little bit of cockiness to them already. I don't think that's an issue. Bringing Dejounte in, I think he'd fit perfectly what they want, and the defense wouldn't drop off. So you bring in a point guard who actually probably raises your defensive ceiling on top of very much raising your offense. So the Heat here get Dejounte Murray as well as John Collins, who the Hawks have been trying to trade for a minute. And then the Hawks get Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and the number 18 pick in this year's draft. So it kind of hurts if you're Atlanta, to move off Dejounte like this just after you traded for him. But there have been rumors that they're looking to trade Dejounte if the price is right. And Tyler Hero is a good replacement because he's a guy who doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time, and neither does Duncan Robinson. So all of a sudden the Hawks would have elite spacing with Trey, Hero, and Duncan. The defense, again, would be an issue there. But in terms of spacing, it would be really good. Dejounte might give you a little bit of concern spacing-wise, but having a core of Dejounte, Gabe Vincent, Jimmy Butler, John Collins, and Bam Adebayo is a just much improved starting 5 from what they just ran out. And if you wanted, you could even switch it. So is Dejounte, Jimmy Butler at the 2, Caleb Martin at the 3, John Collins, and then Bam Adebayo, and just have a really big lineup. You could do something like that if you wanted as well. And this would just make the Heat much more versatile, make them better offensively, as well as not really hurting the defensive ceiling. So if you're Miami, I think this is the deal you chase, getting Dejounte. It might not pop as many people's eyes as like getting Dame or Kyrie or the next guy we'll talk about, but Dejounte Murray has been an all-star. He's a very good player, and you get Collins along with him as a super athletic power forward. So if I'm them, this is the one I'd probably chase. But also looking at James Harden, because he is a free agent this offseason, so this would be a sign and trade as well. It's been pretty much reported heavily that he wants to leave the Sixers, whether it's the Rockets, the Suns have been linked, but the Miami would give him a great chance of winning a championship. But the biggest concern to me if I'm Miami and bringing in James Harden is he's a guy who now has a pretty storied reputation of being a kind of playoff, like the opposite of a playoff riser. A guy whose production gets lower in the playoffs from time to time, and on a team that was already having guys slumping, adding that would be difficult to swallow. But the package here I really like. So you give up Tyler Hero, you give up Duncan Robinson, you do give up 2 picks. 2 picks is a decent amount, but you get rid of a guy in Tyler Hero who didn't play in this year's postseason run, and you basically swap James Harden for Duncan Robinson. And James Harden is just a better player than Duncan Robinson, if we're keeping it straight here. So then all of a sudden you would have a lineup of Gabe Vincent, James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin, and Bam Adebayo, and the Heat's ceiling would be so much higher. I don't even think it's close necessarily, but the playoff performance stuff would make me really concerned here, because what you're doing here for Miami is you're trying to take a last step in the postseason, and the concern again would just be that if you had guys that are slumping, he could be a guy that's slumping along with them, and then all of a sudden it's not what you want, and it has more issues, and he doesn't really feel like that tough mentality Heat culture guy either. But James Harden is definitely a guy that they could look into, and a player who will be a star that's available this offseason. This is like the order that I would rank them in. So if the stars are available and these are the 5 guys they look after, this is who I would rank as the guys they should look into the hardest. Damian Lillard is the number 1 option to me. It feels like if he wants to get traded, it's the place he wants to go. He's the dominant number 1 option. He's an elite scorer. He's a playoff riser. One of the best playoff performers of this decade. Has hit multiple buzzer beaters in the playoffs to end series, and has hit a huge amount of really big shots in the playoffs. Adding him alongside Jimmy would be huge for this team. It alleviates both their spacing, their shooting, and their just offense problems in general, as well as being a good playmaker, which at times I felt like they lacked as well. So Dame just feels like the perfect fit, the perfect star for Miami, and if they can get him, they should do anything that it takes to do so. Dejounte Murray is my second guy, especially if he comes along with someone like John Collins, because he just feels like a perfect fit, and he is the only guy here who really doesn't lower the defensive ceiling, because as much as I like the other players on this list, they're not really good defenders. Dejounte is, and with that brings along a kind of fire to him that I really like for Miami. Bradley Beal at 3, because again he provides the spacing, the shooting aspect. Kyrie at 4, he's probably the second best player here, but behind Dame. I think Dame is probably a better player than Kyrie, but Kyrie is a phenomenal player, likely a Hall of Famer. We'll see what ends up happening there. Best handle of all time, very good scorer, but the kind of personality stuff kind of concerns me. And I put Harden at 5, who's probably the 3rd best player here, or 2nd, whichever way you want to order it. But James Harden to me is declining and is a playoff slipper, which just isn't what the Heat really need. So lastly, I wanted to talk about something else that the Heat have to focus on this offseason, which is retaining their key free agents, focusing first on Gabe Vincent. I kind of ranked these in order of importance to me. Gabe Vincent is a guy who was really great throughout the playoffs this year and has been kind of a consistent presence over the past couple of years for Miami, but he's going to get a bag. It's probably $15 million at least annually for Gabe Vincent, just because of how good he was offensively during this year's playoffs. It's kind of a guy who just takes ballsy shots, takes tough shots and hits them and probably never going to be an all-star, but just as a super solid offensive starting point guard in this league, and is great to see going from undrafted from the G League to where he is now. Great story. Max Strus didn't play super well in the finals, so maybe you say that cost him his bag a little bit, but played well throughout the rest of the playoffs. So Max Strus, probably like a mid-level exception guy. Kevin Love is an unrestricted free agent as well. We'll see if they bring him back. I liked him for what he provided. Victor Oladipo has a player option, but I actually assume he'll pick that up just because of the injury and stuff, and we don't know when he could be back next year. So Oladipo, if he doesn't retire, because the injury stuff has gotten so bad, but Oladipo is a guy who I expect to pick up the player option. Cody Zeller, unrestricted free agent, was a solid backup 5 that I wouldn't mind bringing back if I was Miami. And then Omer Yurtseven is a restricted free agent. Has kind of been like the young backup big. They've been growing in the fold, and seems like a guy that they've invested time and assets into growing him as a player. Has looked really good through summer leagues and stuff. So Yurtseven feels like a guy that they would want to keep around, but we'll see what happens with him as well. But outside of like a superstar trade, priority number 1 for me is keeping Gabe Vincent if I'm Miami. He's a guy that you have to keep, has been kind of crucial to this Heat core, and has really grown into one of the most important players on the team. And the fans love him. They should. He's awesome as a player. But again, the Heat are expected to go star hunting this offseason because they're close, because they can make this a great Heat era, and because they need the offense and shooting. Damian Lillard to me is the top option, Dejounte at 2, and then guys like Beal, Kyrie, and Harden should be interesting pieces for them as well. And the Heat are going to go all in. They're going to try to do everything they can to maximize this window with Jimmy and try to win an NBA Finals. And as we've seen through his 4 years in Miami, he takes them places, and if they add another star alongside him, it could be scary for the rest of the league. So we'll see what happens there. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you think the Heat should target, who they should try to get, what free agents they should keep, and all the other offseason stuff about the Heat you're interested in. So just let me know your thoughts. That's going to be it for me today. Think about subscribing. Again, on the road to 8,000. We're going to hit it soon. I believe we're over 7,900 now, so we're chasing that. Thanks for watching, though. That's going to be it for me today. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.